I want to express my outrage at the despicable attack today against the French magazine Charlie Hebdo. It was a horrendous, unjustifiable, and cold-blooded crime. It was also a direct assault on a cornerstone of democracy, on the media and freedom of expression.
The United Nations remains to many a hollow organization with a fancy mandate and little in the way of actual leadership. And the events in Paris this week have people around the world, and especially here in America, asking how an organization charged with making the world a better place can be taken seriously when even the terrorists find solace and refuge in their arms. It's a pleasure to welcome back to MidPoint conservative political activist, former diplomat, and former United Nations Ambassador Alan Keyes joins us. Ambassador, thank you so much for being here.
Glad to be with you. Thank you.
Is this simply what happened in Paris, the biggest wake-up call that maybe the world has received about terrorism and murder in the name of God since 9/11?
Well, I think it could be, though I fear that we have not been wakeful in watching the signs that, on account, I think, of the retreat of the United States government under Obama from leadership in areas like this, we are finding that our enemies and the enemies of freedom and security for innocent folks around the world are emboldened. And organizations like the United Nations, remember, were founded in the wake of World War II as a result of the leadership and initiative of the United States of America. Insofar as they have had any effectiveness, it was because we were willing to take a lead and were serious in our commitment to things like the basic tenets of a liberty that include freedom of the press, the basic tenets of rights that include respect for the basic rights God endowed of human beings. We've backed away from all of this in the course of the last decade, and especially in the course of the tenure of Barack Obama. Lip service is paid, but all the things that are necessary, economic strength, military strength, a clear sense of our commitment to the basic ideas and principles of government and human dignity, all these things have been cast aside, and nothing has really been done to maintain our strength, which is fundamental, I think, to the will that the world is going to have against this kind of atrocity.
Ambassador, let's bring this around then to the world. We talked about the United Nations here. This is an organization that is supposed to be set up to bring nations together, find peaceful solutions, find ways for countries to act together. This is also an organization that is recognizing certain terrorist organizations now. And this, of course, is the battle between Israel, Hamas, the Palestinians. But how then and why does the United Nations simply continue to sit on the sidelines? International events like this happen, and to the American people and others, they seem to do absolutely nothing and are totally useless in trying to find answers.
Well, let me be frank. I think it's clear if you look at the history of the UN and the various and assorted things it did manage to accomplish, some of them good and some of them quite bad. The bad things always come up because the key to everything, which was the leadership of the United States, was absent. And the good things came about only because United States leadership was present and active. The United Nations, in point of fact, was the brainchild and was brought into the world by the midwifery, if I can call it that, of a United States that was, in the wake of World War II, committed to government of, by, and for the people, premised on respect for basic human dignity and human rights. And that was what was supposed to be the core and heart of the United Nations. We ourselves have been following leaders who have backed away from that view. We have rejected the notion that, in fact, there is a common humanity that requires respect from government powers and religious powers and other powers if human beings are to be treated with dignity.
So then it's simply stated then, in your opinion, that as the United States goes, the United Nations goes, correct? If we're not there, in your opinion.
As the United States goes, the world goes. And as we are faltering, the hope for the world that more than once in the 20th century, we didn't represent it with words. We didn't represent it by saying, well, blather this and blather that, and I feel awful. We maintained our strength, and we deployed that strength with wisdom and consistency whenever we could in the defense of liberty, in the defense of human dignity, in the defiance of the kind of atrocious governments and organizations that are now deploying their terror against people around the world. If we don't rediscover that capacity and rediscover leaders who are willing to think it through, maintain it, and deploy it, then I think the world is in for a hard time, and we along with them.
All right, Ambassador, please stand by. We're going to take a break, come back second go round with Alan Keyes, and we'll focus on America when we continue right here on MidPoint. Welcome back to MidPoint. Former diplomat, presidential hopeful, radio talker, and political activist, Ambassador Alan Keyes joins us. Ambassador, let's turn to America. Congress, Washington, D.C. right now. The new Congress is in session this week. And as we move forward, we talk so much about Obamacare, the Keystone Pipeline, so many other things. But in light of what happened in Paris this week, national security comes back to the mind of many Americans again. What is it, in your opinion, that needs to be done, and who's going to show the leadership to do what needs to be done to protect this country better?
Well, as you may know, I saw a lot of these difficulties coming the minute Obama was elected, because he is a president who has never been committed to maintaining our leadership in the world or the national security posture that we need in order that we can provide the kind of leadership that offers people hope against these kinds of atrocities. He's one of these people, he shoots off his mouth, and then he lets our nuclear deterrent and our military forces decline, get demoralized, and he wastes them, fritters away their lives and our human and other resources with no strategic sense of what is necessary to serve this country's
But if I
interests.
might interrupt you, though, Ambassador, what is it that Congress needs to do? Let's move to Congress.
Well, first of all, I think the Republicans in Congress are going to have to find a backbone, which they don't have. They have been consistently simply capitulating to Obama on the domestic issues and in terms of acquiescence in an approach to foreign policy that has been riddled with scandalous failures and that has essentially offered aid and comfort to enemies of the United States that are perpetrating the kind of atrocities we see. I think we need to see change. And that's not just in terms of Obama's leadership, because sadly, I think McConnell, Boehner, a lot of them, they are part of the same elitist faction, arrogant pursuit of ambition at the cost of our national interest that I think is destroying our Constitution.
So in other words, that would make them a politician just like anybody else. I hate to say that.
Exactly. But, you know, the sad thing is that regardless of whether or not politicians always lived up to this standard, there used to be a standard that was defined when the country was founded. That you looked for people who were going to do more than pay lip service to the common good, the common interests of the American people. This has gone by the boards. These people are just serving themselves, and they spit in the face of the voters who elect them time and again when they go to the polls to try to get something done about the things that are destroying us all.
Okay, now let me get down to John Boehner here for a moment, couple of minutes that we have left here, because just today, a couple of hours ago, Speaker Boehner said, "I am the most anti-establishment speaker ever," basically blowing all the language out that he can against his GOP detractors, saying you're wrong and I'm not the problem. Why is it that John Boehner is suddenly the problem?
I don't care what John Boehner says. I only look at what he has done. And even in the wake of the last election, when the voters went out and expressed a political will to stand firm against Obama's anti-constitutional initiatives, his dictatorial edicts, Boehner, what does he do? He files a lawsuit with the Supreme Court. You do recognize, don't you, that the Supreme Court doesn't have the power to call Obama to account? Mm-hmm. Only the Congress, with the initiative of the House of Representatives, can call this little would-be dictator to account. And John Boehner has made it very clear he has no intention of doing so.
So who's got the guts?
He only mouths words to serve himself.
Who's got the guts then, Ambassador, in your opinion? Give me one name.
Well, frankly, I saw some people with the guts who stood against Boehner's re-election, including Louis Gohmert and Webster and others, and I think people oughtn't to regard what they did as a failure. It was a successful example of the courage it's going to take if we're to discover self-government in this country. I think Ted Cruz has been standing with that same courageous firmness in the Senate against an overwhelming defect of leadership from Mitch McConnell, who seems to have taken the mandate of the people in 2014 as another excuse for quisling collaboration with Obama. So I think that we need to start looking for those who aren't just talking, but are willing to take the blows, take the hits, risk defeat and failure for the sake of lifting up America to the position of strength and success from which it has sadly fallen under the incompetent leaders in both parties that are afflicting this country today.
30 seconds I got left, and it sounds to me like you're calling John Boehner and Mitch McConnell two of the most gutless politicians you've ever seen.
Well, frankly, I think that what have I called them in the past? That the whole gaggle of quisling leadership are a craven of cowards. And more than that, they are sacrificing to their own political empires and ambitions the common good of the United States. We must end it, not on a partisan basis, but on the basis of our love of this country and our desire to see it raised up again to the beacon light of hope it has been and will be again, if we are willing to have the courage to insist upon it.
Ambassador Alan Keyes, a man who always has courage and his convictions, says exactly what is on his mind. Always a pleasure to have you on the show, my friend. We'll look forward to the next time.
Good to be with you.
All right, take care. After the break, Mike Huckabee wants to be president. The aforementioned John Boehner, he wants a nice, easy time as Speaker. And now there is the reality of the 114th Congress, the members who are there, and what they're going to get done. We'll talk about that and a whole lot more.